What if, instead of getting an MRI to know what problems or diseases currently exist in our bodies, the same scan could be used to predict future problems and help you prevent them altogether? That's the heart and soul behind Imaginostics, a startup led by today's guest, Codi Gharagouzloo. I'm Logan Plaster, and this is Startup Health Now, where we bring you interviews with the most forward-thinking and interesting founders in healthcare today. On today's episode, I'll be handing the microphone off to Unity Stoakes, Startup Health's co-founder, for an interview he recorded during JPM Week in San Francisco. In the interview, we're going to go into the science behind Codi's work and what makes it truly unique.
We can do something you could never do before. You could never before at the individual level measure the vascular density, function, or leakage. It just wasn't possible.
We'll also back up and get to know Codi's founder story and how he went from a young troublemaker to a PhD physicist.
I had been actually kicked out of school. I was up to no good making trouble in the neighborhood. And so, sitting around with the usual suspects, saying, what are we going to do when we grow up? And I said, I'm going to become a nuclear physicist. And one guy looks at me and he says, yeah, man, you got to do that. And I thought, oh, shit.
Even if, like me, you're not fully up to speed on cellular physics, you can appreciate Codi's passion and the journey that he's on to bring in brand new technology to bear for preventative health. This is a soul-level passion for Codi, and you can hear that throughout the interview. Imaginostics has raised $5 million and received a breakthrough designation from the FDA. So while they're early in the game, they're also gaining exciting momentum. So this conversation comes at a very interesting time in their story. I hope you enjoy.
This is Unity Stoakes from Startup Health, and I am here with the amazing Codi Gharagouzloo. Welcome, Codi. How are you?
Good. Yeah, absolutely, Indy. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Codi is a health transformer in Startup Health, the founder and CEO of Imaginostics, a company I am really, really excited about, part of our Alzheimer's moonshot and several of our health moonshots at Startup Health. And maybe that's a good place to start, Codi, because I do want to get into you and your background and how you kind of invented this technology. But let's start with your mission and tell us all about Imaginostics and what it is, what your vision is.
Yeah, absolutely. This company really wouldn't have been founded without my co-founder and my wife, Valerie Gharagouzloo.
Another amazing health transformer.
Absolutely. So she's my other half who completes me. And so I bring the science and she brings everything else.
So you're a PhD. You actually invented, well, first I want to hear in, a sentence or two what it is, but then I also want to hear about how you created the science behind it, because it's really quite extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a background in, I've got two bachelors. I've got two bachelors, a master's, a PhD, and a postdoctoral fellowship under the belt. But before I started my PhD, I've always been interested in the physics of things very small, very tiny. And so I've been interested in the atomic level detail of things. And in engineering school, I got very bored later on when everything became empirical for fluid dynamics and so on. So, I started thinking about how I could contribute to the world to help people with physics. I found imaging to be a good spot. I tried out particle physics and decided that lifestyle behind the computer wasn't for me, and I didn't feel like I could contribute on a personal level as much as I wanted. I did a master's in biophotonics, and this was very exciting. Lots of things going on with imaging with light, but it doesn't really penetrate into the human body. You can't really do medical type imaging of living organisms. Didn't feel like it was going to be where I could contribute well enough either. And so my interests moved to medical imaging. And so, I joined a nanomedicine laboratory. At the time, I thought nanomedicine was going to be the cure to cancer.
Was this at Harvard or in Boston, or where was this?
Yeah, I found a program in nanomedicine at Northeastern University in Boston.
Okay.
And, I even started cooking some nanoparticles there in the kitchen. and made sure I'd stayed away from chemistry after that. That lifestyle wasn't for me either. And I really looked at the field of imaging. I thought about all the modalities that are there, MRI, SPECT, CT, PET, ultrasound. And amongst them, MRI stands out as really the most excellent modality for imaging the tissue in the body. But the drawback to MRI is this qualitative signal. And so we get all these beautiful images, and you would think we can just see disease in the body, but really doesn't go beyond what the radiologist's eyeball can pick up. And so that was my thesis starting out. How do we overcome that limited medical imaging, the thing that limits it, which is really the qualitative signal?
So this is going all the way back into like 2011 to 2018 when you finally launched Imaginostics?
Yeah. So my son, Noah, was born September 26, 2011. I started my PhD October 1st, showed up a month late for that. And I just sat down and read papers 12 hours a day, for as long as it took to come up with an idea. And from September to about December, January, I started with that idea, and turned out real well. Continued with it, and still doing it today. So take us. Let's speak to me as though the reality, which is I know nothing. Like MRIs, I understand that, but how are you changing the game with MRIs? Because I know it's pretty extraordinary in terms of taking MRIs to the next level with your science. How does that change the world? What's going to happen because of this innovation you've created? Yeah, so it really enables, for the first time, a look at the internal physiology. So we move beyond these black and white images of the anatomical, and we start to measure what's going on in there, getting information which really describes at a cellular level the microenvironment. So
a clinician can do what now? Drug developers can do what now?
Yeah, so now we can make these absolutely outstanding maps of the vasculature beyond what you could do with the toxic metal gadolinium as a contrast agent. And then these higher resolution, sharper images of the blood vessels are incredible, but also in those microvascular filled areas where we don't have the resolution to see those blood vessels, we can still quantify in that volume. Is it 3% vascularized, 4%, 5%? Can really start to quantify details about that cellular environment. And then we can also look at the modulation of those small vessels, look at the vasodilatory function. That's very indicative of health and disease. And also for the first time measure, again at the individual level, leakage of for example, the blood-brain barrier. Very important.
And this is really quite interesting because I feel like we're at this moment where several different layers of innovation are happening at the same time, and so it seems like you're bringing this innovation to the world at the same time that AI has a new life force to it. The whole really realm of what's now becoming possible in medicine is advancing very, very rapidly. Bring us to what's next, where you're going, what you need to bring this extraordinary science to the next phase of really progress, where clinicians, drug developers, others will be using it in a way that envisions your dream.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful for the wave of AI. It really opens up our technology to wonderful possibilities, as it does many technologies. The convergence of AI with our technology can be described as, for example, we get 100x better data. So now anything that people are doing...
100x?
Yeah, compared to non-contrast MRI, 100x, and then compared to contrast with gadolinium, 10x, and that's as judged by radiologists. But really it's hard to quantify because we can do something you could never do before. You could never before at the individual level measure the vascular density, function, or leakage. It just wasn't possible. And so we can do that analytically. We can see that in a map, for example, overlaying the anatomical vessels in the brain. We can go ahead and overlay these biomarker maps. And because now contained within our data are those physiological measurements, it's a data-driven technology that can be applied to many different fields. And in particular, I've focused in neurology in my research. But also, we recently got the breakthrough designation to replace gadolinium and iodine imaging because it's safer, and those patients are contraindicated, actually, to both gadolinium and iodine.
And you've taken this, explain how far along you are, like with the FDA and things like that at this point.
Yeah, so we are about a year away from submitting an NDA. So it's a combination product. The innovation is in quantum physics, and that's implemented as a software on the scanner that controls it and changes how it acquires data, and also generating images, and then a new contrast agent. And then this contrast agent was actually originally approved for iron deficiency anemia. So it's an intravascular anemia drug. So it's an intravascular, iron supplement. It's very nice, healthy for you.
Hey, a quick plug about Startup Health before we get to the second half of this interview. We have been organizing mission-aligned networks called Health Moonshot Communities in order to level up the world's most ambitious healthcare entrepreneurs. We've been doing this work since 2011 and have helped more than 500 companies from more than 30 countries. Membership in Startup Health is open exclusively to founders and CEOs in health tech, biotech, and life sciences who are dedicated to solving the biggest health challenges of our time. You can learn more about the benefits of membership, and you can read hundreds of success stories, member testimonials, all at startuphealth.com.
So you're located, I think, in a really extraordinary place I wanted you to share with the audience. So you're actually down in Florida now. I know you started in Boston, and I'm not sure exactly when you moved, but I know you're down in the Guidewell innovation community down in Lake Nona. Will you just tell us a little bit about that and what the environment's like?
Yeah, I mean, they call it the medical city of the future.
And this is in Lake Nona.
Lake Nona, Orlando.
Orlando.
That's right. It's a beautiful place. I think 10, 15 years ago it was cow pastures, and now they've just built it. If you build it, they will come. So there is quite a bit of medical innovation there. They have a new VA, a new children's hospital. In particular, they have the headquarters of Fountain Life, which I think is really, in terms of preventative diagnostics, really a leader. And, our mission is to move from curative to preventative care. And so that's a part of what brought us down there, was really I actually had a conversation with the CEO of Fountain Life after reading the book Life Force. And I said, hey, look, this is really incredible what you guys are doing. You're doing the full body MR, you're doing the low dose CT, doing all this blood work and so on. And you're looking for these diseases early. But these MR images really aren't delivering much preventative diagnostic information. He says, I know. So, we are going through the FDA. We are aiming to get approved so that we can market this thing. And we want to serve people who have a like-minded mission.
And I know later this year you're going to be at the Lake Nona Impact Forum with us at Startup Health, and something we love going to every year. Tell me about the day-to-day down in the medical city of the future there. Are there other entrepreneurs and innovators that you're bumping into, other scientists? I know there's Guidewell and others there, KPMG and other companies there, but are you a pioneer there? Do you hope other health transformers kind of make their way there? What's kind of the hope in terms of the culture and community forming down there?
Yeah, there are some companies there at the Guidewell. Just upstairs, they've got kind of an incubator of sorts for many interesting companies that are coming along. There aren't nearly as many as some of the scenes that I've been in. Out of Boston, thousands of companies, right, just everywhere you look. I think it's really still more. Room for growth in that area. I do feel like we're among the pioneers that are there, and we really stand out, which isn't so bad. And it's really a lovely place to live. Has a lot of opportunity there, and so very happy to be there.
Yeah, I love to learn about these things because, as you know, community, I think, is so important just in general. That's one of the things that we focus on, obviously, at Startup Health and building these health moonshot communities, and why we're so grateful to have extraordinary health transformers like you and Valerie, because community is really about people, and sometimes that's in a particular place, like your new home in Lake Nona, but it can also be more broadly. So many things are distributed now; they're all over. So I wonder if you might maybe share why you were attracted to becoming part of Startup Health and our health moonshots. As an entrepreneur, as a scientist, as someone focused on these big ideas around health innovation.
Yeah, I think Startup Health is actually a really unique organization in the quality of the companies that are involved, in the quality of the science. One of our investors is the Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation, which I think is uniquely poised to really advance, both diagnostics and therapeutics in Alzheimer's disease. And they're one of your sponsor companies, and so I think that's one of the things that attracted me for sure. And really, just looking around at the quality of the companies that are involved in the community there, I'm really blown away. And so, as a scientist from Harvard Medical School, one of the leading institutions. I've got a pretty good nose for these things, and I really can say that this is really the cutting edge science and really amazing companies that are involved in. And so that's really what attracted us.
It really is about the people, and our view is it gets to be really exciting at an exponential level when you just align, purpose-driven people. And way back at the beginning of this conversation, you talked about you really wanted to focus on meaningful innovation. What's your origin story? How did you get started? What kind of guided you? I know you started to talk a little bit about this at, what drove you to become a scientist, but what drove you from a very young age?
Gosh. I think, I remember being 15 years old and sitting around talking with some friends. I had been actually kicked out of school. They had the pleasure of kicking me out. And, I was up to no good, making trouble in the neighborhood. And so, sitting around with the usual suspects, saying, what are we going to do when we grow up, right? And I said, I'm going to become a nuclear physicist. It just came out. This is what I wanted to do, just natural. I want to be a nuclear physicist. And one guy looks at me and he says, yeah, man, you got to do that. And I thought, oh, shit. And so, I think that's really when I woke up and when I really did start to, interrogate within myself, kind of, got out of that group of friends, which was really getting me in trouble, got back into school. I started going to summer classes at the local university, really put my foot on the accelerator, and been with the heavy foot on the accelerator ever since then. And, when I was about 19, I came to the question of, does God exist? And as a person that loves physics, it was very natural to me to, everybody believes there's a big bang, and I think it's natural to see that there must be a big banger. And I think helping people and serving people and loving people and it's really just woven into the fabric of the universe. And so I've had the pleasure of attempting to do that, pursuing that vigorously, with as well the vocation that interests me the most. So I'm very blessed in that way.
It's quite extraordinary. I always think there's just so much crossover between science and spirituality and religion, and there's a lot more connections, I think, than oftentimes many people talk about. But that's really quite fascinating. And you're a doctorpreneur, what we love to call doctorpreneur. You're a scientist, you're an inventor, you're an innovator, but you're also now a founder, a CEO. What's that journey like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really it's really incredible. And when getting out of academia for me wasn't necessarily straightforward. I think the culture has shifted, but when you're a postdoc in Harvard Medical School, when you're in these very strong academic organizations, it's almost frowned upon. It's like going into industry. However, at the same time, I was looking at what I was doing. I was looking at the impact. I mean, I had published lots of papers. We had done things in Alzheimer's. We had done things in head injury. We had done things in cancer. But, how are we going to get this technology out of the lab and into people's lives? And so I just sort of had to take really the next step. And again, would have never done that without the support and encouragement of my wife, who was also an entrepreneur in the legal field and had started her own firm. And in Boston, we have the Cambridge Innovation Center, and there's all kinds of entrepreneurs in there. And so, you look around at all these founders and what they're doing and their startups, and you get encouraged, and you think, yeah, maybe I can do this.
Well, I love you sharing that wisdom, because I think there's so many folks that are clinicians, maybe working in a hospital, scientists working in a lab, academics working in academia. And I think there really is this magic that happens when you bridge those worlds, and we take some of these extraordinary ideas or innovations and bring them closer to the real world. So thank you for doing that with what you're doing. Let's get back to what you need. Like, if you were to wave a magic wand to kind of take Imaginostics to the next level as an entrepreneur, you've got the science, you've got the innovation, you've got this extraordinary technology. What are the two or three things that really move the dial at this point? Is it capital? Is it the right types of partners? What drives you forward now?
Yeah, I mean, and we were blessed. Last year, we raised $5 million. Our original angel investor, one of the four, joined the company and was able to raise that round for us. And so, we got a little bit of gas in the engine thanks to that. And also, we got the breakthrough designation at the FDA just in October. So that enables us to really talk with the FDA to see how we're going to bring a product to market. Makes things a lot clearer. We do need more capital to be successful. And then also, we do need strategic partnerships. I mean, our go-to-market product is focused around serving people with kidney disease, replacing gadolinium and iodine imaging for them. There's about 2 million scans a year where people do get those life-saving medical images, and then they usually get dialysis afterwards because they are strictly contraindicated to the agents, but they get it anyway. So our product is a combination product. It's a software that goes on the scanner, and it's the drug, the intravenous iron supplement. But even after we get FDA approval, I mean, how are we going to sell this thing, right? How are you going to distribute a drug to, health systems and to, so many different hospitals and the people that need it? So we really are looking for a strategic partner that already has those channels developed. And that's absolutely critical for us. And so we're focused on that, yeah.
Well, I know there's a lot of those folks listening here. So what's the best way to get in touch with you, Codi?
Yeah, Codi@Imaginostics.com. You can email me there is a good way, Valerie@Imaginostics.com.
And it's Codi with an I.
Codi with an I, C-O-D-I.
Okay. And we'll make sure that's all in the show notes. And let's shift gears just for a minute. I'd love to hear your perspective on kind of the state of innovation in health and healthcare more broadly. We're entering 2025. We're at the amazing JP Morgan Healthcare Conference here in San Francisco. There's a lot of activity. You've probably talked to hundreds of extraordinary people over the past couple of days. But what's your take on the moment we're living in, where things are going? How do you feel?
I feel like it really is the perfect convergence. And I see the need for our technology. Because, for example, one of the things I'm passionate about is longevity and longevity drugs. And there's for example, in the field of longevity, you're going to try to reverse aging. But what's your endpoint for that? What are you going to do to show that your drug is working? And this has really been something that has been a critical failure point for a lot of companies. The clinical trials are very expensive. You can barely make it. One of my favorite types of therapies is cell therapy, all right, especially from the placenta, because there's living medicine in there, and it's just getting thrown out. So one of my favorite companies is Cellularity. But you look at the stock price of that company, and it tanked. And that was because you got to be able to show in a dose-dependent way, what is your drug doing? You got one cell, what's your output? And so the vasculature, quantifying the vascular physiology, I mean, if you can have the healthy vascular, brain of a 20-year-old when you're 60 or 70, I mean, that's it for you, right? I mean, absolutely 100%. So, we have the endpoints that can really accelerate drug development. It can be used in so many different spaces. And so what I see now with all these amazing upcoming drugs, for example, in silico medicine, is another incredible company. I mean, they're using AI to, design drugs. I don't think there's going to be a dearth of drugs. And they're modeling the molecular signals and the cellular environment. But at some point, you have to test these drugs. And I believe that precision diagnostic biomarkers, especially imaging, and there's nothing like what we have, are desperately needed to be able to show for the first time at individual level, are these things really working? And how are they working? And so the convergence of our technology with AI and the generation of all these new targets really, I think, bridges the gap between, identifying really cool drugs and targets and then getting them out there. Yeah.
It's quite extraordinary because we're seeing such leaps and bounds in diagnostics like you're describing. We're seeing extraordinary leaps in the actual drugs that are coming to market. The GLP-1s, for example, is a whole other layer of innovation. But I see this coming down the pipe across a whole lots of therapeutics coming into the future, and then you start to think about what you were talking about before in terms of the impact that has on healthy lifespan, longevity, a whole host of other opportunities to make extraordinary progress. What's your take on the concept we describe as health moonshots, big thinking, big, bold, audacious dreams? We tend to think in 25-year time arcs. Where do you see things going over the next 10 years, 10, 15 years? How fast is this moving?
I think Peter Diamandis wrote that book, The Future is Faster Than You Think, right? I think it's true. It's much faster than you think. And, NVIDIA coming out with all their faster GPUs, making things accessible. AI is going to be even more accessible. People showing us that they can model these very complex systems. And the GPUs are just getting better. So those models are just going to get better. I think that in 10, 15 years, we very well may have a drug that, for example, reverses aging. And the paradigm shift in thinking has to change, from this single, druggable target. Like, for example, in the field of Alzheimer's disease, we have monoclonal antibodies to remove the amyloid plaque. Great. Well, you're going to reverse, you're going to slow down the rate of cognitive impairment by as much as, let's say, 30%, but you're not going backwards, you're not reversing it. I really believe that the drugs that, for example, cure Alzheimer's will probably be good for everybody, right? And it's really going to improve the health more generally. And so yeah, I'm very optimistic with some of these, some of the David Sinclair work, for example, another one of my favorite out there. I'm very optimistic that we could have some age-reversing therapies in 10 to 15 years. And so, I think the best thing we can do is stay as healthy as possible, hold on, invest in the right spaces, and I think we'll get there to a healthier, longer health span.
What do you wish more people knew today about Imaginostics?
That we can help. I mean, we can help in so many ways, right? So, it's really incredible. I mean, you're talking about interrogating the human body with 100 times more precision, for example, than what might be possible now. But our goal is to get to market with a simple product to make better and safer imaging for those who need it, generate revenues from that, and then continue to invest in these biomarker-driven products. And ultimately, as we become more known in the community, serve people developing drugs and accelerate that. Because diagnostics are great, but the real impetus is to cure people. And so, I hope we can move to a preventative healthcare system where you get an MRI scan when you're healthy, and we can identify what's wrong before you could feel it, before the symptoms appear, and then you get the right drug before you got those symptoms. I mean, that's the vision.
Do you envision a day where everyone just gets an MRI in a preventative way rather than later on in life? Give me a little lens into your future as you see it.
Could be. I mean, in Japan, I think from what I understand, at 40 or at some particular age, preventative MRIs are happening. They're mainstream. We have a very reactive healthcare system, a very dysfunctional healthcare system. And, it's not just MRIs. There's a lot of really cool technologies for measuring molecular signals in the blood now, in the eye, some eye optical imaging technologies. Some of those could, for example, indicate a disease. They say the eye is the window to the brain. And then that's great. And then that might be the impetus to come along and get a more expensive and cumbersome MRI scan. So we're not competing with any of those. I've seen incredible technologies around, for example, menstrual blood or, taking the measurements from the toilet, because there's a lot of molecular, signals that are being ejected from our body in those ways. I think that's really the way of the future. We have to be able to get our hands on that data and diagnose disease as early as possible and treat it as early as possible. That's the most cost efficient. It's the best way for humanity.
Totally agree. And I see this as also an opportunity to bring business model innovation. You mentioned Japan. I know in India, for example, you can walk in and as a consumer go get an MRI and pay for it out of pocket affordably. That's just kind of unheard of here in the United States. You normally do it when your doctor tells you to go do it or it's paid for by your insurance, and the price is often completely unknown. So it seems like there will be, yes, for MRIs, but many of these types of tools, technologies, diagnostics, a new way to pay for them, new cost structures, new ways to access them that I hope one day is more open to people everywhere and affordably so. How do you feel about that? And do you think that's just a pipe dream or do you think we'll be moving in that direction?
I think that's absolutely the direction we're moving in. I think it's a matter of, where do we get the diagnostic data? And those things are becoming more affordable. They're becoming more compact. They're becoming things that you can take to your home. I'm constantly learning about new technologies like that, and I'm blown away by it. I think that things are moving much faster than we think. And, I'm very excited about the future. It's constantly, every day is another day where I can say it's, the most amazing time to be alive in the history of humanity.
It really is. So what would you tell your 15-year-old self when you were kicked out of school, what's your best wisdom to your younger self, and also to maybe other youth, other innovators that are coming up, other entrepreneurs just getting started? Couple words of wisdom to share with those coming up.
You're right. So I would say, yeah, you're absolutely right. Wake up, do all that you can, because your life depends on it. Absolutely. From that time, I put my foot on the accelerator, and until today, I've been working hard at it. No regrets. Even had the pleasure of meeting my other half. Got 3 wonderful children. And so, I think we really can do incredible things as we harness the collaborative spirit of humanity. AI is out there, but we absolutely need humans to come along and take advantage of that. Actually, it's much easier to learn today. It's much easier to innovate today. I think the innovation, if you had to step up on a ladder or climb a tree to get to that low-hanging fruit before, now you just have to reach out your hand. Mm-hmm. It's really incredible. The best teachers are right in front of us. You've got AI. You can ask it. Well, maybe not the best teachers. You're gonna have to train the Richard Feynman model or something. But the point is that it's available. Knowledge is so much at our fingertips. It's really changing the way we learn. It's accelerating the rate at which we can get there to the new ideas. We can much quicker ask the right questions, get the right answers, and then get to the new questions.
Well, Codi, it's just such a pleasure and honor to get to talk with you today, but also to get to collaborate and partner and be with you and around you and learn from you. So thank you for everything you and Valerie are doing and your entire team. It's very inspiring. So I see you have a 4-leaf clover on your hat. Tell me a little bit about that before we go.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, I just want to say as well that, you're 100% right, that it's in community that we're really going to be stronger together, and we're going to get places and get these amazing innovations out of our head and into the hospital and into the, humanity's hands. So happy to be a part of your organization, Unity. Thanks for being my new neighbor, my new friend. And I can't wait to meet so many more people inside of the community. Already am. Get plugged in, get even more plugged in. We're very fresh, I think a couple weeks or so. So the story behind this hat, this is, and it's funny because I've been wearing it around the conference. And, many people think it's a sports hat. It's not. But it's the Tony Robbins hat, the black clover.
Right. Exactly. Okay. I thought that. I just wanted to make sure.
It's the lucky hat. It's a reminder too that life, just as in business, it's all a spiritual game, and we're blessed to be here. We live to serve, and it's more blessed to give than to receive.
Well, Codi, thank you so much for sharing your time and wisdom and everything you do. We're so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Startup Health Now. We'll be back again with another episode next week.